Alright, I'm quite certain I would get an email or two from somebody if I didn't cover this next subject, and that is using the warp tool. And a lot of people know that's my favorite tool. It does all kinds of cool stuff, and I just want to demonstrate a couple of cool things that you can do with the warp tool to incorporate in your designs. Now, the first thing we're going to do is kind of a background effect. And what I'm going to do is, let's select the color that we're going to use for the background. Let's just get like this green color here. Or no, let's do a reddish color. And I'm going to go ahead and Option Delete, fill that background with that color. I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank layer. And in this case, I would normally use the rectangular tool, rectangular marquee, but I want a rounded corner shape here. So I'm going to go into the shape tools here and grab the rounded rectangular tool. And you can see when I draw a shape, it gives me a rounded shape there. But what I want it to do is actually just draw straight pixels. So I don't want it to draw any paths or a shape layer. I'm going to use this third icon here and just have it draw straight pixels for me. And we'll set the foreground color to black, and I'm just going to draw a rectangular shape here. Just like that. So it's on its own layer, and what I want to do is apply a style to this. And we're going to open up the Styles window. If you go into the window and there's Styles, let's drag it out. And we're going to apply a web style, which is one of these right here. And these are all presets inside your Photoshop. You just load up web styles, and you get these right here. And I'm going to choose this one. And you'll notice that it goes in, and it looks a little bit overblown there. And we're going to do what we did earlier, is scale the effects by holding down the Control key or right-click right on that effects icon, and we're going to go down here to Scale Effects. And we'll take it to around 25. And I think that looks pretty good. Then we're going to basically create a pattern of these. You can do this one of two ways. I could define the area as a pattern, or I'm just going to do a simple step and repeat for the purposes here. So I'm going to load this as a selection, because if I do a step and repeat on an element that isn't selected, it's just going to create that same layer over and over and over. So I'm going to have a whole bunch of layers in my document. So by selecting it, we're keeping it on that one layer. So load that layer as a selection. I'm going to press Option Command T, that would be Alt Control T on a Windows, and that'll set us up for the step and repeat. So I'm going to drag this over, hold the Shift key down to constrain left or right movement, and drag this over until it gets a little bit of space in between them. And I'm going to press Enter. Now, keeping it still selected, I'm going to press Shift Option Command, that'd be Shift Alt Control, and then press T a couple more times, or a few more times, until we get across the document, just like you see there. So we're going to do the same thing going down. I'm going to load all these shapes as a selection. I'm going to Command click right on there. Again, Option Command T. And I'm just going to drag it down this time, holding that Shift key down, and we'll put a little space between that. Press Enter. Again, Shift Option Command T, 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 T. And we'll get one more in there. And let's just nudge that up. So now we got all those shapes on our layer. Well, now I want to rasterize it, so the effect or the layer style is no longer being applied on there. So we're going to create a new blank layer right underneath it. I'm going to hold down the Command key, click to create a new layer, highlight this layer, and just simply press Command or Control E to merge it down. So now there's no longer a layer style applied. We're all looking good. Now I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to press Command or Control T, and here's where we go and hold down the Control key or right click right on the object, and we're going to choose Warp. And here's the cool thing about Warp. It's pretty much just free for all. You can distort the image any way you want. You can grab any of these corner handles. You can grab these curve handles rather. You can grab a corner handle. You can even click inside the grid and move it around. So let's just see what kind of possibilities we get here. We'll just distort this shape into an odd looking background effect here. Can almost give us a three-dimensional look if we take it and look. We can bend it right around there and do all kinds of crazy stuff. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to that extreme in just a moment. But I just wanted to show you how you can simply take it to create really interesting kind of three-dimensional type backgrounds. So let's say I'm done with that. I'm going to press Enter, change the blend mode to overlay or hard light, whichever you want to do. But look how cool of a background we've created. So I could pop a paragraph of text on this, maybe put an image on top of here. Just do anything. So that's using Warp to create a background. Now another way of doing it is creating really cool symmetrical designs. So I really sort of discovered this effect while I was messing around with the Warp tool one day, and it just kind of built up into something really cool, and it just kept adding to it and adding to it, and it just turned into something even cooler. So it's an interesting way of experimenting with the warp tool in that you can create graphics with the warp tool in mind, not just as an afterthought. So here I have a blank document. I'm going to go ahead and I want to work on a black background, so I'm going to press Command or Control I. Go ahead and inverse that white to black, and let's go ahead and create a new blank layer to work on. I'm going to go into the toolbar and select my brush tool, and I want to get a really small brush. In this case, actually a 6 is going to look good. And we're going to keep it at a soft edge brush, and let's make sure we're painting with white. So let's set white as our foreground color. Hit the default, flip those colors around, and we're getting a simple line like that. Now, I do want to make sure that the pen pressure is turned on, but for the way we're going to apply this, you don't necessarily need a pressure-sensitive tablet because we're going to actually use a path. So I'm going to grab my pen tool right here. I'm just going to click right up here, hold the Shift key down, and then click another line across the document. So we're getting one single path. Let's go into the Paths palette and go to Stroke Path. And we're going to use the brush. We're going to simulate pressure. That's why you don't necessarily need the pens. We're going to click that, and it applies it on that layer. So let's deactivate the path. So there's the layer. Let's add a quick layer style to it. I'm going to double click on it, and we'll add a simple outer glow. And blue, I've discovered, tends to show up best against this black background for the sake of demonstration purposes, but I do encourage you to try different colors as well. See what kind of different effects you get. So we're getting a nice cool beam there. So I'm going to click OK. So we've got our streak and we've got our layer style applied to it. Before I do anything else, I'm going to create a duplicate of this layer. I'm going to press Command or Control J because I never know when I want to get back to this original layer. I don't want to have to go all the way back and start over. And you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So another reason is we need to rasterize this layer style. So I'm going to select this duplicate layer. Let's turn this one off for now. Select this duplicate. I'm going to Command or Control click right on the new layer icon. It pops a new layer beneath the active layer. Let's reselect that, press Command or Control E, and it merges it down and leaves it intact, and it's rasterized the layer style. So now we're going to do a step and repeat like we did earlier. I'm going to load that layer as a selection. I'm going to hold down the Command key and click right on that layer. I'm going to press Option Command T to set up the free transform. Then we need to reposition it. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just hit my down arrow a few times there. And then I'll press Enter. And then keeping it selected, we're going to press Shift, Option, Command, and then T a few more times. And there we have our lines all on one layer. So let's duplicate this layer because if I don't want to go back that far many steps, yeah, I do have the history, but I like having stuff quickly available in the Layers panel as well. So now let's have fun warping. So with that layer selected, I'm going to press Command or Control T to bring up the free transform, Control or right-click right on the object and choose warp. And all we're really going to do is just kind of flip this around, but you can experiment and do all kinds of different configurations with this warp tool. It has a number of possibilities to do very, very cool stuff with, because I myself am still discovering all kinds of neat things with this. Let's just kind of push these around, take that way over there, and then we'll press Enter. So not quite what I was looking for. So let's try it again. Again, you're probably going to run into this, is that the warp tool is so unpredictable, and the way you're going to get, the results you're going to get aren't always going to be what you're looking for. I think I'm just going to take a simple sweep here and just do that. So that is more what I'm looking for right there. So this could be an interesting background that I've created. So I can just kind of move this element into position, and it could be great. And that's where I was when I was messing around with it that one time. But I thought, well, what if I did more? Let's make us and take a duplicate of that layer. Go into the Edit menu and Transform, flip horizontal. It starts to give me an interesting effect there. If I offset these two, and let's take this one and drag it over here, and when they overlap, it kind of gives me an interesting effect there. Look at that. So let's take those and merge them together. I'm going to press Command or Control E, and let's scale it in and see what we're getting here. We're actually getting something that has some potential here. Let's keep going. I'm going to duplicate that layer again, press Command or Control T, and this time I'm going to flip it vertically. And we'll bring this right up in here. And we're starting to see something pretty cool. It's all symmetrical, it's kind of lining up, and it just kind of mirrors each other and has an interesting look to it. And you can try it in different configurations. If I take this and kind of push this down here, we'll get something different. Let's actually put them a little closer together, and we were getting something pretty interesting right about here. And that's looking pretty interesting. So let's merge those two layers together. And let's scale this up a little bit. So let's duplicate it again, and we'll take it and go to the side. Just rotate it onto the side here. Maybe drag it off. And I'm going to hold down the Option key and just scale this disproportionately around the center. And we'll see what kind of different shapes we get. We're just getting smaller versions of that. Could be offset to the side to create an interesting symmetrical design there. We can duplicate that and drag and duplicate over here. And then what we got here is could be a cool nameplate. Let's take a rounded rectangular tool, drawing just a shape, as you can see up in the options bar, and let's just draw a rounded box. We'll go ahead and center that in there. So it's on its own layer. Let's lock the transparency and fill it with black, Command Delete, and let's apply the same layer style. Remember, we got that layer style right down here. Let's drag it up here and apply it to that shape, and perhaps enhance it a little bit. Let's make it larger. Take the size up. Looks pretty cool, and this could almost be a really cool nameplate for an effect that we're going to apply. But I think you get the idea of taking that warp tool and looking at the way this is all intertwining and looking really cool. And that was just a matter of warping a series of lines and then just duplicating it and flipping it around and just building a symmetrical design from some very simple shapes. So one easy way, or one cool way of experimenting with the warp tool. Another way is, of course, as you saw earlier, to create simple backgrounds, but you can see that there's a tremendous amount of potential with that warp tool if you build graphics with the warp in mind.